Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Isaiah. I am a licensed professional counselor, and today we are going to be talking about a mental health intervention that has grown in popularity across the entire country. It is really easily accessible. You can get it on apps for free, for paid apps. There are therapists who do it. There are retreats that you can go to. What I'm talking about is mindfulness and meditation, and we're going to be talking about one of the hidden dark secrets of mindfulness and meditation, and what you may not know about this intervention that's supposed to be the next big thing when it comes to the transformation of mental health for people across the country and worldwide. Before we delve into that, please do like and subscribe. That helps the channel to grow and helps us to create more content like this for you all. So with that being said, let's dive into the topic. So full disclosure, I do use mindfulness interventions in my practice. When I see clients, one of the things that I'll usually work with them on is some breathing exercises to help them be in touch with how their body is feeling, being able to really be curious about their experience in the present moment. The definition that I use for mindfulness is an intentional, non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. Let me break that down a little bit. We're being intentional, so this is a choice that we are making to be aware of what our body is experiencing, what our body is sensing, what our thoughts are doing, what our feelings are doing in the present moment. And the important key that I emphasize to them is that non-judgmental piece. A lot of times we're evaluating our experiences, whether something is good or bad, whether it's something to be avoided or embraced. If we can be non-judgmental, we're just treating it like any other thought, any other experience, of which we have thousands, if not millions, every day. So we're just noticing what something is and allowing ourselves to experience that. That's my basic definition of mindfulness for anybody who I'm working with. So what's the problem with that? It sounds good. It's been sold as this great tool for people who want to improve their mental health, who want to be healthier, who want to be more engaged with the world around them. It's supposed to help with anxiety, with depression, with PTSD, all kinds of mental health problems that supposedly can be solved through the applied use of mindfulness and meditation. Let me break that down a little bit too. In my mind, mindfulness is about that intentional, non-judgmental awareness. And meditation is more of a spiritual practice that involves a more intentional altering of your state of consciousness. Mindfulness can create effects that are sometimes similar to that, but it is more focused and the exercises are less spiritual in nature. In terms of meditation, you might have more guided imagery, you might be repeating something or thinking something to yourself. You're trying to influence something, and mindfulness is more accepting your experience the way it is at the moment. So the headline that caught my eye and inspired this video is, meditation and mindfulness have a dark side we don't talk about. And this is true. Mindfulness and meditation have been growing in popularity since the mid-2010s, and maybe even earlier than that. And a lot has been made of the non-medical component of it, that this is something that you can incorporate into your daily life, that offers a multitude of benefits across a bunch of different environments. It's been introduced into the corporate environment, into the school environment, healthcare obviously, and just in people's personal lives as a daily part of their routines, almost like a mental health tune-up. But what's important is that we talk about the potential iatrogenic effects. And we talked about this in a separate video, but iatrogenesis is an unwanted effect or a harmful effect from a medical intervention. A lot of times as we're talking about informed consent, we don't let our clients or our patients know what could be the potential harmful side effects or unwanted side effects of them practicing mindfulness and meditation on a consistent basis. But wait, you're telling me that just breathing can have a detrimental effect? Like, how can that be? Again, we go to the logic of, if something is powerful enough to cause some benefit, then in theory, it should also be powerful enough to cause some unwanted or negative effect as well, when not applied properly or when not taught properly or not used properly. Logically, we think that. There have also been studies that talk about the potential harmful effects of mindfulness and meditation practices over a period of time. The initial article says the first recorded evidence for this found in India is over 1,500 years old. It describes various practices and includes reports of symptoms of depression and anxiety that can occur after meditation. You mean the very things that we are trying to cure with mindfulness can actually be caused or triggered by practices of mindfulness meditation? Yes, that is a possibility for sure. I've had clients who are very aware of their own bodies in a very self-conscious and anxiety-provoking manner. And every time we tried to do some breathing practices, because I thought, okay, well, let's get them kind of attuned to their bodies. Let's decrease some of the stigma that they hold towards their own bodies and their sense of discomfort with their own bodies. It produced an anxious response every time. Even though well-intentioned, even though we talked about the potential effects and we processed afterwards each time, they were willing to give it multiple shots at it, but it produced the same anxiety effects each time. And so we decided that this was not an intervention that was going to be helpful for them in the long term, because it continued to produce this cycle of anxiety that turn them off to the mindfulness practices altogether. Other potential side effects found in that document that's over 1,000 years old also talked about psychosis, dissociation, and derealization. There was a more recent study, so we're not just going off of old documents here. In 2022, a sample of 953 people in the US, this was a population that meditated regularly, showed that over 10% of participants experienced adverse effects which had a significant impact on their everyday life and lasted for at least 1 month. So for an intervention that we think is natural, supplemental, couldn't possibly have any negative effects, you're talking about a 10% chance in a group of about 1,000 people who meditate regularly that you're having some kind of negative effect that persisted for at least a month. That is a pretty significant cost that we are not informing our clients about. And a review that went over 40 years plus of research into mindfulness and meditation and its potential side effects back up that initial Indian document, and this was published in 2020. It says the most common adverse effects of mindfulness meditation are anxiety and depression, also potentially followed by psychotic or delusional symptoms, dissociation or depersonalization, and fear or terror. It is hard to say exactly what mechanisms might be causing these side effects, especially because mindfulness and meditation are such broad categories. There are so many different ways that people do it, and it's not very standardized that it's hard to say if you meditate this way or if you're mindful in this way, this will cause psychosis or this will cause depression and anxiety. It's really hard to nail that down in particular, but the important thing is that we're not informing people of these potential risks. We are marketing it almost as a supplement in the sense of like, oh, you know, take these vitamins, it couldn't possibly do any harm. The best case scenario is that it can help your symptoms, and the worst case scenario is that nothing happens. That's not the case. We need to be informing clients that no, there might actually be some side effects that you need to watch out for, and we need to discontinue if those side effects are showing up. There is something to be said for the fear and terror that being mindful is, like I said, an intentional choice. It is not just being yourself. It is not just being in the moment necessarily the way that we think of when we're in the flow of playing sports or playing a game or something like that. It is an intentional choice to step away from the way that we normally function. So in that sense, it can function as an altered state of consciousness. We are choosing to be conscious in a different way than we normally are, and that lack of familiarity, if we are with someone who's not guiding us particularly well, or just whatever pre-existing conditions we might have, that might cause a lot of anxiety, fear, or terror in that experience. And here's the kicker to all of this. Author and Buddhist teacher Ronald Purser actually wrote in a 2023 book called Mindfulness that mindfulness has become a kind of capitalist spirituality. And I think that really gets at what we're talking about here, that it is mass marketed as this will fix your mental health problems and stripped away of the quality and the depth that was built into the spiritual practices of meditation and mindfulness in the first place. And the reason for that is just this number here. In the US alone, meditation is worth $2.2 billion a year. That's a lot of reason not to publish or market any potential harmful effects of what they are selling. What's concerning is that Jon Kabat-Zinn, if you're familiar with mindfulness at all, he's the one who introduced a lot of mindfulness concepts, especially in the medical space, to the US. He said in a 2017 interview that 90% of the research into positive impacts of mindfulness is subpar. So what we're selling potentially doesn't have a lot of research evidence into the potential positive benefits, and we're also minimizing or not even talking about the potential negative side effects that people might experience. A Psychology Today article said that a 2018 systematic review, so this is a review looking at all the other studies about mindfulness, found that only 22%, 1/5 of the randomized control trials on mindfulness-based intervention considered the presence of adverse effects. Not that they didn't find adverse effects in 22% of them, or that they discussed them but said there weren't any. It's just that 78% of the studies did not even mention the possibility of there being adverse effects. You really need to let that sink in. We're talking about medical research that influences how practitioners, either doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health professionals like counselors and social workers, are providing services to people, and you're not going to discuss how this could potentially be unhelpful or harmful for them. Another article saying that mindfulness may have risks as well as benefits, which I think should be fairly obvious by now, says that while no systematic reviews of the safety of mindfulness interventions appear to have been published, this is not evidence of absence of harm. So this is important. Just because we don't publish that there are harmful side effects does not mean that there are no side effects, but just that that has not been published or talked about. Indeed, a cursory search of the literature finds a number of adverse effects reported in individual papers, including physical pain, disorientation, addiction to meditation, suicidal ideation, and destructive behavior. And it also highlights that those with pre-existing mental health conditions, which are the people who are most likely to seek this out as an aid for their mental health, are more vulnerable to these potential side effects. So that's definitely concerning when we're talking about a population that already has a pre-existing mental health condition. They are going to a counselor or some kind of mental health professional, or maybe going on a retreat, or looking at the latest app that's either free, they got a free trial, or they're paying for it, trying to use mindfulness and meditation and not being informed of the potential risks that they're taking on because they are in a high-risk population for experiencing these adverse side effects. So my point in talking about all of this is not that we should stop using mindfulness. I think there's a place for it. I think there's a lot of good research being done now, and especially in the surge of papers now being published, articles being written about the potential harmful side effects, I think we're getting to a place where the fad of mindfulness is a little less powerful, and people are not just taking it just based on the word of this is gonna transform your life. I think it's settling more into the realm of this is another tool that we might be able to use. We need to weigh the pros and cons, the potential risks and benefits that this intervention offers, and that it is not a one-size-fits-all approach to be able to solve all these mental health issues. I think that was being oversold a lot, especially with the minimization of the potential risks that come with using meditation and mindfulness regularly. So again, this is not to say if your therapist introduces the idea of being mindful or meditation that you need to run the opposite direction and find somebody else. No, these things swing back and forth, and I think the response to mindfulness and meditation as a somatic tool for healing and for mental well-being was a contrast to the very rational, emotive, and cognitive-based therapies that came in the 1990s and the early 2000s. But the important thing is, at the end of it all, is informed consent, that our clients need to be informed of the potential benefits and risks, and then in conversation with them determine, is this going to be helpful for you? Let's talk about how you are experiencing this mindfulness and meditation tool. And if it is not working, we need to be able to reevaluate instead of just saying you need to meditate harder because this works for everybody, or it shouldn't be causing any problems for you. So let me know in the comments what your experiences with mindfulness and meditation have been, especially if you've experienced some of these harmful side effects. I'd be curious to know what that experience was like. What was it like when you tried to confront that, either with your mental health professional or however you were experiencing the mindfulness and meditation? Again, please do like and subscribe. We've got a lot of exciting things coming down the line for you all, so make sure you're on the lookout for that. I'll see you all next time.